For those of you who have been following my training, you'll know that I've been working on improving my 5K race performance. So what I thought I'd do in this vlog is something a little bit different. I'm going to take some research, but I'm going to show you how I apply it with my own training and how I go through setting up my training week and some of the thinking that goes behind my own training programs. So one of the main reasons behind me starting to work on my endurance performance was I had this question in my mind of whether I was too old to get any quicker. My son was challenging me to park runs, and it became a nice little competition between us. But I wanted to know whether I could actually still improve. Now, I had a fairly solid training history, but a lot of my training was geared towards the sports that I was working with. So I was working with high intensity intermittent team sports predominantly, and a lot of the time they were collision sports. So sports like rugby league, rugby union, and sports that involved a wrestling and grappling component. So I had to be strong for those sports. I had to be able to handle some blunt force trauma that came from the players and the wrestling activity, and still be able to perform some of the high intensity running tasks as part of the reconditioning and return to play with those sports. But that kind of training wasn't particularly helpful for my 5K running performance, the times that I was doing for my park runs. So I needed to have a look at the training I was doing. And as I was looking back over my past training performance, my past competition performances in my park runs, I had been stuck on the mid 20s for a 5 kilometre park run for as long as I could remember. I go back to April 2019, and my time was 20 minutes and 40 seconds. We fast forward to November 2020, and it hasn't changed much at all. Same in December 2020, and then in February, I'm taking 1 or 2 seconds off at a time. So the question in my mind is, why am I getting all hot and sweaty? Why am I getting out of bed early in the morning, and I'm having these minuscule, tiny improvements in performance? I felt like I was working pretty hard, I was training pretty hard, but I wasn't getting the return on the effort. So I changed my training program around. I started to focus on the things that I really needed to do in order to improve my endurance performance. And keep in mind, I'm geared towards the 5K. This is my little event that I've worked out in my mind. And for those of you who've followed me long enough, I've got a real philosophy of I'm not going to die wondering. I'm going to have a decent crack at it. So I looked at areas that I needed to improve, and local tissue loading was one of the things that I knew that I could build into my program quite easily. So I looked at my calf strength, I looked at my calf endurance, I looked at my glute strength, I looked at mobility, and I tried to improve those areas. My philosophy there was that if I could get stronger in those areas, then it wasn't going to take away from performance. It was only going to add to my performance. It was going to, if I could get my local tissue loading right, it was going to allow me to handle sport specific loading better, which then was going to put me in a position to compete well. I wanted to maintain my strength power focus, and the reason behind this is that we know that strength and power training can improve running economy. It can also result in some moderate improvements in endurance performance. So I wanted to maintain the strength power focus in my training. I'd also knew that if we look at some of the best runners in the world, one of the best predictors of their performance is the amount of time they spend in low intensity, so the miles that they accrue at low intensity. So I knew that I had to build my low intensity running volume, but I also needed to work on my range. I needed to develop my anaerobic capacity, and I did this through short effort, long rest intervals. And I also needed to develop my ability to hold race pace for longer. So I needed to improve my VO2. And I did this through long effort, short rest intervals. So you can see here that I'm starting to train a little bit more like a runner, and I'm starting to try and improve my range. Now, all of this loading was built within a framework of making my hard days harder and my easy days easier. So the standard week looks something like this, and typically I would train 2 times a day, but there will be occasions where I will do a third incidental session. Now, some of this could be on a bike as extra training, but it's not really geared towards towards improving my running performance. And this schedule doesn't include my local tissue loading, but my local tissue loading can be done every day. It's not fatiguing, but it's something that can be done to activate me for the day. It can be done as part of my low intensity recovery sessions. It's not particularly demanding. You'll see here that in the morning I'll train strength or power, and I've intentionally scheduled these days to minimize the interference effect. So you'll see on the Monday I'll do a lower body strength session, and on the Thursday I'll do a lower body strength session, and that is followed by my longer, easier run. What I find for myself is that I tend to be a little bit leg heavy after my lower body sessions, and I don't want to do a high intensity running session on the back of my leg sessions, mainly because I want to have quality in those high intensity sessions. So when I want to run fast, I want to be running fast, and I can't do that if I'm leg heavy. But I don't mind being a little bit sore and running fast. So there's a difference here between being leg heavy and being sore. So I tend to schedule my faster running days on the Tuesday after my leg day on the Monday, or on the Friday after my leg day on the Thursday. And you'll see that I just alternate my lower body and upper body days to minimize that interference effect and to promote enough recovery there. You can see also that there's at least 3 days between my high intensity speed anaerobic capacity type sessions on the Tuesday afternoon and the VO2 max sessions on Friday afternoon. And you can see after those heavier days of running, the Tuesday and the Fridays, that we have an easier day, a recovery day or a longer recovery session. So if we were to look at this as a schedule, I've built in my longer runs, and these longer runs, the longest I've run was a half marathon, but typically they're around 10 to 15 kilometers. Easy running, rolling along, talking pace. The Tuesday sessions are my short effort, long rest intervals. And these will vary from week to week depending on my schedule and the plan, when I plan to taper, when I'm loading, when I'm unloading. But they typically won't be any longer than a 60-second effort. The shortest work rest that I would have would be a 1 to 2. But I've had to really push myself and really challenge my thinking on these anaerobic capacity sessions to try and stretch out the recovery. If I want to run fast, then I can't do that on short recovery. If I want to run maximally as fast as I can, you have to have long recovery. So I've really had to challenge my thinking there to encourage myself to give myself more rest. Don't fall into the habit of making it a just one long continuous aerobic session. If I want to run fast and want to improve speed, then I have to train speed, and to train speed I have to give myself enough recovery. And then you'll see also on the Friday I flip it. So these are my VO2 sessions where I'm doing longer effort, shorter rest. So the shortest effort I'll do here will be a 60-second effort, but typically they'll be as long as 4 minutes. They can be longer than this, of course, as well. But they're typically on a 2-to-1 work to rest ratio. 2 parts work, 1 part rest. And you can see across the course of a week, when you add all that volume up, I get to around about 45 to 50 kilometres in a week, and that's kind of a big week for me. And of course, it's all relative to where you've been. Some people will look at a 50-kilometre week and say, well, that's nothing. But it's obviously when we talk about training, we're talking about what someone can handle relative to their capacity. So let's think where I was. I was in the mid-20s with my PB on the 20th of February at 20:37. But once the improvements came, they came in a rush. So on the 17th of April, 7 weeks after I started my program, the change in my program where I really focused on these 5 key areas, I broke the 20-minute mark. And you'll remember that prior to that, I was making 2 and 3 second improvements. When it came with a big drop in time. Then on the 15th of May, I lowered it again by another 20 seconds. And on the 5th of June, I lowered it again. So things were really starting to move in a very short space of time. The training I was getting a lot out of my training. You could see the improvements in my training. My interval times were dropping, so you could see I was starting to spend more time at faster speeds. And the more time I spent there, the more comfortable I felt at those faster speeds. And the final time trial that I've had, or race that I've had, was on the 11th of September, and that one I ended up with another 40-second drop in time, or a 32-second drop in time. Now, over the course of around 7 months, from the 20th of February to the 11th of September, I had a 9% improvement in performance. So what had the biggest impact? Well, I'm not entirely sure. I could probably do some stats on it and do a little bit of a regression on it to find out, but there'd be a combination of things that contributed to the performance improvement. One is that I had a slight reduction in body mass. It wasn't a huge drop in body mass, but and whether it's the cause or the effect of the running, I'm not really sure. Whether I dropped weight and therefore I was able to run faster, or I was just running more so I dropped weight, I'm not really sure, but I definitely think that contributed. It was a lot easier not having to carry extra muscle mass around and not have to muscle my way through 5 kilometres of a race. I think a key thing was that I was able to maintain my absolute strength both in the lower body and upper body, and with the reduction in body mass, it resulted in improved relative strength. And I think this was a key thing too. You don't have to be have huge absolute strength to move your body weight across the course, but it helps if you're relatively strong, and I think that has contributed to the increased speed. I've got a better range now. The anaerobic capacity work that I've been doing has allowed me to become faster. I admit I'm not, it's all relative, and there's a lot of people out there who are a lot faster than me, so I'm probably not fast, but I've got a better range than I ever had. And I think one of the key things too is on those hard days where I was doing my VO2 work, I really had to bury myself, and they were pretty tough sessions. They were really tough sessions, but it allowed me to become comfortable holding race pace for longer. So being down in that pit where you have to hold those really uncomfortable speeds or that fatigue, but hold the speed under that fatigue. And without a doubt, those VO2 sessions, the 2-to-1 work rest ratios with the longer intervals, the shorter rest, they definitely improved that. But I think I always had a good structure to my training week, but what by thinking about my plan well, making sure that I had a high-low approach to my training. So I had a low day on Monday, and then I'd follow it with a high day on Tuesday, and I'd follow that with a low day on Wednesday. If I trained high on Friday, then I followed it with a lower day on Saturday. And that high-low approach, that polarized approach to training, gave me a better structure to my week, which allowed me to train harder with more recovery. So I was able to train hard, and then I was able to recover hard on the back of it. So hopefully you enjoyed this vlog. It's a little bit different from the normal research vlogs that I do, but hopefully you can see that everyone can improve. Even if you are a little bit on the older side, everyone has some improvement in them. It's pretty clear that I've got faster, but I'm still not fast, but I'm okay with that. And what I will emphasize too is that this program was pretty much designed specifically for me. So you need to consider your capacity when you're building into a new program. What works for me may not be perfect for you. So you have to find what works for you. If you'd like more information on any of the research that we do, or any of the training topics that we cover, there's a heap of free research and blogs on our website. Feel free to visit us at gabbettperformance.com.